Welcome to 2x4 Hardcore, Episode 13, Shadow Prince and the Surprise Patch. Hey guys, so on this episode I'm going to be joined by a guest star, and we're going to be discussing the Shadow Prince area, and also what we think PvP arenas will be like, or Battlegrounds. After that, I'm going to be talking about the new surprise patch that came out this morning and my early impressions of it. And finally, I'm going to be talking about the 2x4 Hardcore second contest that I'm holding. So I hope you guys enjoy the episode, and without further ado, here is my conversation with Captain Crunch. So today, for the Ordering Chaos segment, I'm going to be talking about the Shadow Prince and PvP areas in general. And today, I'm joined by Captain Crunch once again.
How's it going, Idaho?
And we're going to be discussing these topics. So, the first one is about the Great Waterfalls PvP area. And we're just going to compare it to Vegas Square and Arkan's Field. I think that Vegas Square was really fun for many months. Two things wrong with it in my eyes were untagging and the recent glitching behind the walls that certain people have been abusing. I can deal with constantly getting sniped by archers or getting killed in 10 seconds by a frost mage, but people untagging still makes me so mad. And now people are glitching into walls and sniping me without me having even a chance to kill them. I do like Arkan's Field, but there are too many level 20s that get ganked, and not a lot of people fight there for wars.
Well, Vegas Square I like. It's probably my favorite PvP area at the moment. Just because it's got a lot of little hidden areas, you know, people can be fighting all over the place. There's even a whole nother side to Vegas Square that not a lot of people know is there. It's nice to kind of drag somebody over there and kill them without anybody else seeing. Arkan's Field, to me, is a little obstructive. Like, there's just a lot of creatures all over the place, a lot of low levels trying to do quests there. I don't really do too much PvP in Arkan's Field. But as far as the Great Waterfalls, that's also another pretty good PvP area. I like the diversity because, you know, you get people in the back and you can have little underwater battles. And then you got people fighting on that log there right next to the waterfall, where if somebody messes up, you know, they fall all the way down, have to take a long time to get back to the battle. So it's kind of interesting. There's a couple different mechanics at the Great Waterfall than there is in the other ones.
Yeah. I think that the Shadow Prince area is a little too unorganized, and it has a lot of problems. But for PvP wars, I think it's probably the best, because there's harder mobs that try to kill you. So if I get sniped by an archer who comes out of sneak, there's a chance some mobs will be near him, and he can go down with me. I like how Gameloft added in a harder PvP area with new elements to it, but they made the PvP line too close to the whole thing, so it's easy for people to untag. And I think if they fix this problem and also fix the glitching mobs, I think it would be a much better place for Guild Wars.
Yeah, they need to expand that PvP line a little further back, because I know for a fact, you know, you can just stand on the back of that rock and get untagged.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's easy to just sit there and wait for the prince, have your team come and kill everyone off, and then take the prince for yourself.
So now we're going to talk about getting materials for crafted trinkets, and how Gameloft made it hard to get those now. And they also made epic trinkets for soul purchase, even though we had craftable ones that cost $8 each from the Shadow Prince area. I think that they did this to hold us off from new content at the time. They knew it would give people something to do, and they would make money off of it. There were a few problems with these trinkets. First of all, they made it so you had to get a ridiculous number of champion symbol for each trinket, and that requires a lot of Shadow Prince kills or lucky mob drops. Also, you need a champion's mark, medal, or brand, which are hard to find. They made it hard to get trinkets that had good stats, but the problem was that you had to pay $8 for each.
Well, I mean, they did introduce the soul trinkets, which to me is a really good idea, but the thing is that they don't really come close to the effect of the craftable trinkets. Like, I know for a fact that the Ranger best trinket there will give you 69 ranged attack power. The soul trinkets don't really do anything like that for you. They're more about the chance to get slightly higher agility, things like that. I think that for most people, the best thing to do is to get one of the crafted trinkets and then one of the soul trinkets. So they are still necessary. A lot of people just think they're not because of the soul trinkets.
I mean, is it really worth $8 for a little extra boost for your archer when you could just get the soul trinket, which could almost be as good?
Well, that's the thing, you know. They kind of provide options there. And if you ask me, it's a pretty good way to do it, because you get people who have the money to spend, and Gameloft offers them a slightly larger advantage where they can have the awesome effect of the soul trinket and the best trinket other than the soul trinkets. You know, that combination of getting a lot of souls and paying a little bit of money can get you the best spec for your archer.
What if they added a level 70 cap and they came out with new trinkets for a soul purchase and no more $8 trinkets, and those ones have like the stats of the $8 trinkets, but they're a lot better? I mean, then people will have wasted their money on those ones.
Well, if Gameloft was really smart, if the developers, really had our money in mind, then what they would probably do is use the recipe system that they've already got in place and require you to already have one of those trinkets in order to craft the new best trinket. That would make it so those people didn't feel like they wasted that $8, and for other people they could get the one step below trinket,
Yeah.
for paying another $8.
The only good thing I see about this is that people who want to work for the items are happy because they don't always have to pay money for the best gear. But
yeah.
I oppose buying epic trinkets with money, and I don't plan to. So I kind of think this was a mistake on Gameloft's part, because they already have the $15 rune gear, which we had to pay for, and then you have to pay $23 to get even more of the best gear, and I don't really think a lot of people want it to be a pay-to-play game, so...
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of other similar games, were you to pay $15, that game wouldn't almost even be fun anymore, because you'd have so much either gold or whatever it was in their other games, that you would just be able to overpower everything. But in this game, $15 doesn't even really get you too much. It just gets you kind of to the level where you'd expect to be without paying. And that to me has always been a little annoying, because I don't have very much money. But you can do things like buy them, a little bit at a time, and that can get you the full gear set. I just hope in the future that they depend more on the souls.
They basically force people to buy the rune gear, because without it you can't reinforce the epic gear. I like how they added the soul system, because that was actually requested by people on the forums. So if they're gonna go around selling $15 level 70 gear, I think a lot of people would not be happy about that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that for the level 70 gear, they're just going to require you to basically have your epic rune gear, or epic run gear, as some awesome people like to call it. But anyways, if you, just like I said with the trinkets, already have the best, if that can be implemented like a recipe system into creating the new one, so basically people's money isn't wasted.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, how they could have the legendary upgrades to the gear, and that could go the same for the level 70 gear. It's just an upgrade.
Exactly, that's what I'm thinking.
I told you that I feel strongly about untagging in PvP areas by knockdowns or being behind the PvP line. And I actually used to do this when I was just level 60. I think it was really lame and it made my guild look bad. Since then, I try to stop people from untagging if I see them doing it, if they're in my guild or not. Usually, it's monks who untag because they want to heal their team without getting killed by archers or assassins or mages. I can understand that it's frustrating to die so much, but untagging isn't the answer. Gameloft has tried to fix untagging in the past, but people are still finding ways around it. They got rid of rune resin untagging and dual untagging, but now people are using the knockdown glitch when walking into a PvP area, or the mage sleep glitch. The mage just casts sleep on you and then you get untagged when you walk into the PvP area. It's a harder method, but Gameloft has still not fixed it. And I think they can do a few things to change the current situation. The first they need to do is make PvP areas level 55 plus only, and that would stop ganking, of course. Everyone else would be untagged so that lower levels can't get ganked anymore.
Well, I think that would be a good idea because, I mean, right now there isn't a separation between the higher levels and the lower levels. And, you know, people get these crazy, like, 20,000 kills just by going around and one-shotting a couple lobies. And that really throws off the whole kill rank system. Like, you know, you got players like Muffin Top with, like, you know, tens of thousands of
He has,
kills.
like, 28,000 right now.
Yeah, 28,000. You can't imagine that he got those all legitimately.
No, he did not.
Yeah, especially in Vegas Square where there's a lot of, you know, quests for low levels and things like that. So I think your system for separating the high levels from the low levels, that is pretty good. As far as the untagging, well, you know, I mostly play a ranger, so I don't really need to untag. You know, I just stealth and nobody can hit me. For, you know, monks, it's a huge problem because, like you said, you know, they're always just trying to get free heals on their team without getting stunned by an archer or something like that. The point of them always trying to patch the untags, that's another problem because the people who untag are always going to find a way to untag. I think that the resolution to this is to just create a PvP arena because people are always going to find new things that is going to allow them to untag in an area because they're in, you know, the world where it's not all PvP.
Mm-hmm.
They're in a mostly PvE environment, so just that is, you know, a game mechanic that makes it easy for them to untag. But if they were to go to a completely PvP environment, then nobody would try to untag.
You mean like a PvP only server?
Well, I mean like a PvP arena. You know, once they have those, people aren't going to be worried about untagging in a PvP arena, because if you untag, you can't kill the other team.
Yeah, but
it's the only reason you're there.
But if you untag as a monk, you can heal your team.
Yeah, I mean, but if you're in a place where they can code it and make it say that anybody in this realm is in a PvP zone, I mean, it's hard to do that in the world where it's mostly PvE, because they just do tricks where they do something while they're in a PvE area, and then they go into the PvP area while the computer still thinks that they're in the PvE area. But if you're in a PvP battleground, there's no way to trick the computer to thinking you're in a PvE area.
Well, as you said, people always find ways around this. Like in the dungeon, Gameloft thought that people couldn't clear the dungeon in less than 30 minutes, and now mages can pull all the bosses, and people can actually lose aggro inside of the dungeon. So I think there is probably going to be exploits to untagging in PvP arenas as well.
Here's one thing I can think of, you know, that's really going to be a problem in the PvP arenas. I mean, just think of the sync glitch. Technically, you know, in a PvP battleground, you could have a friend sitting right next to you in the PvP battleground. and you could start the match, and then one person could just do the relog glitch, just go back to their home screen and shut their thing off. And then when their friend dies, he just stands there and watches until there's only one guy and he's far away. In something like Capture the Flag, they could just come back into the game, resynchronize, go grab the flag, and come back when nobody's looking. But that's one of the problems they're coming across when they're making these PvP battlegrounds. It's bug squashing like that, making sure nobody can cheat like that.
I find it highly unlikely that Gameloft will actually go so far as to add modes like Capture the Flag. I think they're probably just thinking of a PvP arena with mobs and everyone's just tagged and you can fight each other. But if they did add Capture the Flag, then Rangers could just go into Sneak and steal the flag, and they could go undetected. So that's one problem I see.
Well, yeah, that's why you would need mages for AoEs that broke stealth. But still, it would be kind of hard to tell. But in other popular MMOs, the Rangers have infinite stealth.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's actually even harder to detect. And they still have, Capture the Flag and things like that.
Before they even add PvP arenas, they need to fix the snipe on Rangers. And I know I talk about this every episode, but I think it's way too overpowered, especially with the Sensaya bow. And each update, snipe crit goes up because of the new epics. And that's why a lot of monks are going untagged, because they get sniped every time they walk into the PvP area. And in the Great Waterfalls area, the PvP line ends behind those rocks. A ranger can just kite the Shadow Prince to the rocks, and the monk can heal everyone while he's untagged, while the rest of the team kills the prince. Another problem is about rune resin. I don't really care about this too much, but other people have complained about it on the forums. Basically, when people die, they can pay 1 rune to revive right where they are, and they become tagged immediately, but then, they get full health as soon as they do that. It's their money, and if they want to waste it getting killed over and over again, they can do what they want. And this could be a problem in PvP arenas, because they could just rune res right there in the middle, and then just, like a mage could rune res and kill everyone around them. And I don't really think that's fair. So I think before they add in the new features, they need to balance these things out and make strict rules on it. I think that using potions in duels or wars isn't really that much of a problem. I think it's pretty fair, because in other MMORPGs, people use pots. I just want PvP to be balanced, and I think untagging and rune resing are some of the biggest problems.
With the potions during the wars, that makes a lot of sense to me, because if you think about the kind of thought behind a war, it's 2 people, doing their best to try and take down the other team. That includes using up what you have in your inventory to your advantage. And I would think that, a good warring team would go out and get a lot of pots and put them in their bags. I wouldn't think it as cheating if somebody were to pot during a war. So that's basically my thought process on that. As far as the rune resin goes, when Battlegrounds get implemented, they're probably going to remove the rune res option. Like if you've ever noticed, when you're in a dungeon and you fall off the cliff, there is no rune res option.
Yeah, it actually costs 10 runes to res there, which is equal to $2.
If you're in a dungeon, more specifically, and you fall off a cliff, and you go down to like an area where there's no floor, let's say, it doesn't give you the option to rune res. So that means that they have code implemented to remove rune resing options at certain points.
Yeah, but how often are people gonna fall down a cannon in a PvP arena?
Yeah, well, I'm not really saying that they're gonna fall off a cliff. Yeah. I'm just saying that shows that they have the code implemented.
Yeah, they could enforce that rule with the code that they already have, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm saying that basically they might make it not an option to rune res during the Battlegrounds.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned snipe being a little overpowered. You got these people with the Sensaya crossbow doing like 3 to 4K on their snipes, and that can be the full health bar of some other players. But the thing is, every individual class has their own sort of cheap trick. Like you got the mage with theoretically a possible infinite barrage, which would not even allow you to get a shot off. You know, you've got the tank with courage and stances, and they can take your biggest damage down to about 100, and they could just sit there and gain the health back in 5 seconds. And you know, you got the monk with prayer and, you know, high level restores, things like that can actually allow them to beat some of the best tanks out there. But the thing is, Ranger doesn't really have anything defensively. All they have is that snipe, and if they don't make that snipe, they're pretty much dead. So that's why I think it's not exactly unbalanced, but it's their one cheap trick.
I really think that Ranger and Mage are the things that need to be nerfed a little, and then they need to have other abilities added that increase their weaker aspects instead of making their strongest aspect able to beat a Divine Monk in 2 seconds. So let's just talk about the Shadow Prince in general. Recently, Gameloft made his health higher, and the spawn time is longer now, so people are having to wait there longer, and then it takes like 10 minutes to actually get him down. One of the reasons I see is because the prince drops souls, so people could farm him more easily. If you farm Cosmo, you can get a soul in like 5 minutes if you're really good. It does make PvP more fun, because people can battle him and each other for longer, and when they're waiting, they can have fun battles. But, I mean, if Gameloft wants people to pay $8 for trinkets, they shouldn't try to make the prince harder to kill, because they'd want to encourage people paying $8, and the materials aren't that hard to get. So, I don't think it's a bad thing, but it does make some people mad because they have to wait like 40 minutes for him to spawn.
Let me just ask you one question real quick. Do you know when exactly they implemented that change where they made his health a little higher and his spawn time longer?
My guess is probably with the holiday update they did that.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, because, you know, after the holiday update occurred, I have spent a lot of time farming the prince. And I know for a fact that his spawn time is just around like 42 minutes, and his health was manageable. I mean, with one team of 4 people, it was all on my guild, so we had high communication, but we were able to take him down relatively simply, right on the back there on that little rock to avoid the mobs. You know, it was pretty simple to beat him.
But it's definitely increased since it was when it first came out. They've made it harder to kill him.
Yeah, I haven't done much Prince before that.
Yeah.
Like I was over there, but I was never really farming him.
Mm-hmm.
We made a pretty decent amount of souls. The thing is, the symbol of champions drops in like 2s and 3s now. So technically, somebody who needed 20 of them, you know, could get them in under 10 runs if they were lucky.
Well, they'd have to roll against 4 other people and compete against other teams as well, so it'd probably take longer than that.
Right. I guess the harder thing there is competing against other teams, because if you're on just one dedicated farming team, they can do something like let one person get them all,
Yeah.
which is what we did. And some people don't even have like the $8 to spend on the game.
When I go to the Shadow Prince, I'm usually helping whatever guild I'm in, or just going there for fun to see the PvP. I like to fight there for PvP, as I said. I don't ever roll on the symbol of champion, and now that they added the souls, it makes me want to go there more. But because his spawn time is so long, I could just go to Cosmo and get like 4 souls in the time it would take me to get 1 soul from the prince. So.
Well, that's actually what we would normally do. We would just take down the prince, and then my guild leader, Shaker, would just start his little egg timer or whatever for 42 minutes, and then we would go right to Nasua's prison, and we would farm Cosmo for, 3 or 4 times, and then we'd just haul up back to the Shadow Prince area.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'd farm him. We'd continue farming him.
Yeah, if you have a dedicated team, I guess you could get souls a lot faster, because you could just switch off between the dungeon and the prince. How do you think PvP or Battlegrounds will compare to the Great Waterfalls PvP arena? How will Gameloft make money? I think that arenas or Battlegrounds will kind of be like the Prince is now. I'm hoping there's mobs and obstacles in arenas, so it may be kind of the same. As we said, it may not be possible to untag in these, because when you enter the arena, you shouldn't be able to use the untagged glitch. I'm hoping that there's going to be a PvP gear system with points that you earn to get certain gear. Also, if there's a capture the flag type aspect, there should be bases where you spawn if you die, and the enemy's goal is to invade your base or steal the flag. Or maybe there's a boss in it that represents your team. If the other team kills the boss, they could get an item that makes you win the match. I mean, it could be gold or something. I think that would be pretty cool. And for Gameloft to make money, I think they might add a new exhaust system for PvP arenas. I think a lot of people would be upset if they had the same system for dungeons in arenas or Battlegrounds. They may end up doing that because that's how they make a lot of money from the dungeons. I personally don't think there should be an exhaust system. People should make sure they don't play the arena too much every day, or they'll have all the PvP gear too quickly and will complain to Gameloft for more content again. If there is an exhaust system, then they may have the reset tabs again.
Basically, for me, I'm just really hoping that they separate the dungeon exhaust system and the Battlegrounds exhaust system, because it's almost a guarantee that there is going to be some sort of Battleground exhaust system. I think that we should be allowed, an equal amount of time to do both. But with the exhaust system, I think that, it's honestly a little more about gameplay than it is about just pure making money for them. So it's actually a pretty good idea that they have these exhaust systems, because it gives the person a good gauge on how much they've played during the day, how much they should have played during the day, and also keeps people kind of limited per day, so they're not just wasting their lives on some game.
Well, it's not really limited if you buy a bunch of exhaust tabs. If people buy the exhaust tablets and they do these PvP arenas every hour of every day, then they'll have all the new PvP gear from the PvP point system or whatever, and then they'll be begging Gameloft for more content again.
I'm sure people will probably pay to have those exhaust tabs to just Battleground over and over. And I think it's good that Gameloft does provide those options for the players who just don't want to be exhausted. They, just want to keep going. And Gameloft recognizes that there are going to be people like that. And so, yeah, they do capitalize on it a little bit, and they make them pay in order to do that. I think that that's actually perfectly reasonable. I think that, honestly, though, they should maybe extend the exhaust time of the dungeons, especially considering how long they expect for them to take. If they expect ET to eat up half of your exhaust bar, how do they expect anybody to ever get an epic?
Yeah, I think they've figured out by now how fast we do them. I don't see them raising the exhaust time for the dungeons, because
probably not.
They wouldn't make any money off of that, and people would be able to get tons of souls really fast.
I thought that what you said about having the boss in the bases, that was a kind of fresh idea. I've never really heard anything like that.
Well, I said that because of the Shadow Prince area, and I was comparing it to the Shadow Prince area, so they could have a boss just like the Shadow Prince in PvP arenas on both sides. So that's how I thought of that.
Yeah, I definitely think that would be a really cool idea. There's just one thing I imagine, which is basically both teams would just run by each other, maybe say hello as they run into each other's bases, and then basically see which team can kill the boss first.
Yeah,
that's the only thing I could imagine happening there, but maybe that wouldn't be so bad.
If they added the number of people who could go on a team, like made it 10 people for the PvP arena, they could have people who defend it and go to the other base and try to kill the boss.
I'm interested to see how they choose to implement it.
And when they implement it.
Yeah, and when. Definitely very interested as far as when.
I think people are losing their patience with Gameloft for that.
I enjoy the game, so I'll definitely be waiting it out.
Me too. Alright, so thank you, Cap'n Crunch, for coming on the show today.
No problem.
Do you want to come on in future episodes and talk to me about whatever else happens in the Order and Chaos world?
Oh, absolutely. I'll always be around and I'll always be playing, so if you ever think anything's worth discussing, you just let me know.
I'm actually thinking of doing a tips and tricks segment. I'm going to do like 3 or 4 of those with different guest stars. So you could come on and talk to me about some of those tips and tricks in a few episodes while we're waiting for the new content from Gameloft.
All right. Well, I'll probably be doing more of the archer and ranger tricks and just general tricks that apply to everybody.
All right. So it's January 31st. And if you logged on Ordering Chaos this morning, you may not have been able to log on. And that is because of the new patch update that Gameloft just released for the game today. Basically, it has a bunch of new quests and new content. It gets rid of the Christmas content completely. Another big thing with this patch is that you can now buy essences that originally dropped from the dungeons for runes. If you're watching the YouTube version of this, you can see some of the screenshots. And basically, you can buy Essence of Swamp, Death, and Aristar for a certain number of runes. Swamp is 9 runes, Death is 19 runes, and the Aristar Essence is 29 runes, and that's each. I think that this is really unfair to people who have dungeons for the epics for many months, and now people can just buy the essences for runes. I don't understand what Gameloft's thinking was behind this. I mean, are they trying to make dungeons worthless or something? Okay, I'm gonna get back to that in a second, but also in this update brings the new soul dailies. And these dailies give the core of Soulstone, which equals 3 souls. And the dailies are like in all different places. In the dailies, there are level 60 mobs in different locations. One of them, for example, is in the Shadow Prince area, and you have to kill a certain number of priests, and also a couple of other things. One of them is in the Rift area, and that one is where you have to kill 20 of the boars. There's also other ones, like the one in the desert. They actually added new mobs, new level 60 mobs in the desert just for that daily. So now you can get souls without dungeoning, and it's a lot faster because the dailies are not hard. And it's really unfair to all the people who have spent all their time getting the essences and the souls from the dungeons, and now Gameloft basically makes the dungeons worthless because you can buy the essences for runes and you can get souls without even going in the dungeon. There's also been talk of a new desert dungeon, so if they're coming out with a new desert dungeon with new essences and where you can get souls, why would people want to run those? I mean, no one's going to want a new dungeon with this new update that Gameloft just released today. My guess is that people will start running dungeons less, and if this desert dungeon is actually coming out, a lot of people are going to be really upset. Also, on a side note, I wanted to say that some people in my guild have been running the dungeons since the update, and actually, you can't glitch into Cosmo's room anymore, so people can't pull Cosmo and get their souls anymore due to this update. And also, I've heard rumblings that you can't pull any of the bosses to the entrance anymore because you lose aggro from the bosses. So this is a really big change, and I think that Gameloft is really trying to push us to buy essences and to do these new dailies instead of the dungeons, which makes absolutely no sense to me. So I will definitely be talking a lot more about this in the future. Also with this update brings new dailies in the Whispering Islands and the Swamp of Worms to apparently make questing easier when you're leveling up. This is actually a good thing because when I was around level 21, I didn't find any quests, so I had to grind that whole level. So this is one of the good things I see from this update. So I still don't know everything about the update, but next episode I will tell you guys what else I've found and what other people I've found, and I may even have some guest stars come on and tell me what they think about it so far. That's the update for now for Ordering Chaos, and this is on January 31st. So I recommend that you guys update and see for yourselves what is happening with the game. Okay, before I end the episode, I just wanted to quickly talk about the second contest that I'm having for the show. Basically, you have to create a logo for this show. It has to include the logo 2x4Hardcore, and you can be creative with that. And it has to have a background. Now with the background, you could have someone playing an iPhone or something, and one of the games I talk about on the show could be on that iPhone. I just want you guys to get creative with your logos. All of the rules for the logo contest are actually on the Ordering Chaos forum. I made a thread about it. Basically, all you have to do is look at those rules and use whatever I gave you, because I took some screenshots which you guys can use. The contest ends on February 10th, so you have to submit your photo to me through email or on the Ordering Chaos forum on that thread. And that week I will be posting a poll where people can vote for their favorite logo, and the winner gets to have their logo on the show every single episode, and they win a $15 iTunes card. So I really encourage you guys to join in on this contest. I can't wait to see your entries on February 10th. So that's the episode for today. Next week, I will be having more guest stars come on and talk to me about maybe this new patch. We're going to continue doing the different specs to come on the show and talk. And I'm also going to be showing gameplay of other things besides Ordering Chaos. I know that this episode was consumed by a lot of Ordering Chaos content. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you next week.